Hey guys, tonight we begin with something a little darker, a city built on ash, rumours, and surprisingly efficient plumbing. We're diving into the real day-to-day life of ancient Pompeii, a place where the bread was burnt, the wine was cheap, and the volcano was suspiciously quiet. Forget the postcards of Roman grandeur and mosaics of heroic figs. This isn't Rome's highlight reel, it's the blooper reel, the underpaid, underwashed, overcooked reality of what it meant to exist as a commoner in 79 CE. Right before the sky decided to have an opinion. You probably wouldn't last a single day. So before you get comfortable, take a moment to like the video and subscribe. But only if you genuinely enjoy what I do here. And let me know in the comments where you're tuning in from and what time it is for you. It's always fascinating to see who's joining us from around the world. Now dim the lights. Maybe turn on a fan for that soft background hum. And let's ease into tonight's journey together. Congratulations, you've just woken up in Pompeii. Your ceiling is intact. For now, and that's the good news. The bad news. You're on the top floor of a 5-story insula, which is Latin for cheap apartment stacked by an optimistic architect. It sways in the wind. You swat at something in your ear. It might be a gnat. Might be your imagination. The air smells faintly of olive oil, garlic, and the neighbour's unfortunate attempt at fermented fish paste. You're not alone. No one is. You share this single room with a cousin, a goat, 3 clay pots, and the vague memory of privacy. Your bed is a flattened bag of straw that has long since given up on being anything but a bug hotel. The blanket is wool, rougher than necessary, and dyed with something called Tyrian purple, which is a polite way of saying crushed snails and dreams. Your lime's ash, not from age, you're only 22, but because ancient sleeping positions involve folding your body into a question mark on what may have once been a wheat sack, you shift, and something crunches beneath you. You don't check what it was. That's a tomorrow problem. The window, if you can call it that, is a hole with a wooden shutter that never quite closes. Through it, you hear the earliest sounds of Pompeii waking up a merchant coughing into a jug, a rooster who hates you, specifically, and the sound of a cartwheel hitting every stone in the street like it's auditioning for a percussion band. You sit up, your hair is doing its own thing, and your breath could be used to strip fresco paint. The sun hasn't fully risen yet, but the room is already warm. The ash-grey plaster walls are damp from the sea air, and there's a slow drip of water from the ceiling. You suspect the neighbour's roof pipe again. You also suspect the neighbour doesn't care. A rat scurries across the beam. You name it, Lucius, and decide not to scream. Outside, the city waits. The market, the baths, the temples, the gossip. You have a job to do, and exactly no time to feel philosophical about it. Your sandals are where you left them upside down, covered in what might be soot or something less dignified. You stretch. Something pops. It doesn't matter. The day has begun, and you brave, itchy, slightly dehydrated Pompeian that you are, must face it. Your first real decision of the day is whether to get out of bed slowly or immediately regret everything. You choose slowly, which still results in regret. Your back complains, your knees whisper threats, and your left shoulder feels like it's been used to brace a collapsing amphora. You stand, or rather, you negotiate with gravity until you're vertical-ish. Congratulations, your first miracle of the morning. The floor is not your friend. Cold, hard-packed clay, gritty with dust and the unspoken footprints of the people who lived here before you. Possibly this morning, possibly last night. You wonder briefly if someone else came in while you were asleep. But this is Pompeii. Everyone's doors are unlocked unless someone dies. Even then, It's more of a guideline than a rule. You look around your one-room apartment, a pile of clothing in the corner that you'll wear until it disintegrates. A small cooking brazier, unused since yesterday because you couldn't afford oil. A wooden shelf with a cracked figurine of Mercury, the god of travel and thieves, which feels appropriate. A single clay cup, chipped and leaking from the bottom. You'll drink from it anyway. Leaking is a feature, not a flaw. You scratch your leg, then your shoulder, then your other leg. You're pretty sure you're not infested with lice. But the lice might disagree. You make a note to wash your tunic later, which means you'll remember again tomorrow and not do it then. Either. And then comes the real challenge, the morning ritual. Your chamber pot is over there in the corner. Yes, that one, the same one everyone uses. It's ceramic, slightly cracked, and radiates the silent judgment of every bad decision you've ever made. You do what needs doing. There's no dignity here. Just hope that no one walks in midstream. Or worse, that someone already used it and didn't mention it. You toss a glance out the window to make sure no one's passing below. Then, with a practiced hand, you dump the contents into the narrow alley behind the insula. A short shout of caveat watch out is standard. Not that anyone moves, they just hope it doesn't hit their tunic. You clean your hands with water from the small jug on the floor, which hasn't been refilled in 2 days and smells like regret. There's no soap. You rub them on a cloth that smells marginally worse. And then, with the graceful indifference of the ancient world, you declare yourself clean. Now for oral hygiene, you grab a twig, not just any twig, a chewed one, split at the end, used and reused for at least 2 weeks. It's the poor man's toothbrush. Infused with charcoal ash from the brazier, you run it across your teeth with the enthusiasm of someone who knows it won't help. Your breath still smells like sour wine and poor decisions. You spit into the street. Lucius the rat doesn't even flinch. There's no mirror in the room, just a polished bit of bronze that shows you enough to confirm yes. You look terrible, but so does everyone else. You smooth your hair with wet fingers, smear off the worst of the soot on your face, and step into your sandals. The left one squeaks, the right one bites your heel. It's time to begin the day. You're washed, you're dressed, you're still alive. Barely. The first scent that hits you when you open the door isn't fresh bread or morning dew. It's smoke. Not cozy fireplace smoke. This is the pungent, greasy kind that comes from 20 small fires burning last night's olive oil at various levels of competence. It seeps into your tunic instantly. Joining the mosaic of scents, you already wear sweat, mildew, and something suspiciously sulphurous. A true Pompeian cologne. The staircase down your insula is less of a staircase and more of a polite suggestion held together by uneven stone, damp wood, and the will of the gods. You grip the rope tied to the wall, which some fool once called a railing, and descend carefully, stepping over a loose tile someone dislodged last week. It still hasn't been repaired. You wonder idly if it ever will. The landlord is a ghost who collects rent through a cousin and repairs through dreams. The air outside is already warm. The sky above is pale blue, with a few lazy clouds drifting over the shadow of Mount Vesuvius in the distance. The mountain looms. It always looms. You don't think much about it. Really. It's always been there like taxes. Bad fish. And the shouting from upstairs. You step into the narrow street. Instantly, you dodge to the side as a man in a hurry barrels past with a cart full of amphorae. He mutters something impolite in Latin. You respond by adjusting your sandals and pretending to be deaf. Behind you, our door slams. In front of you, someone spits. The city is awake, and it's not happy about it. You shuffle toward the fountain at the end of the street, one of Pompeii's many public water taps. fed miraculously by the aqueduct system the Romans are so proud of, and, to be fair, it does work. Mostly. You queue behind a woman with a chicken under one arm and a toddler attempting to drown himself in a pothole. She ignores both expertly. The fountain is a stone basin with a lion's head spout. The water trickles out, clear enough to pretend it's clean. You fill your jug and splash a little on your face, which surprises your skin like an unexpected slap. It's cold. It's also faintly metallic. But you've had worse. You once drank from a puddle outside the amphitheater and survived. You think, as you wait, a man sidles up beside you. He nods. You nod back. This is Marcus, your neighbor from 2 doors down. He always smells like pickled fish and has never once said anything useful. But he's company. He offers you a fig from his bag. You accept. It's overripe and slightly fermented. You eat it anyway. Breakfast. The fountain chat is brief rumors of a theft at the Forum. A new shipment of Egyptian linen that arrived full of scorpions. And that old whisper the ground feels strange lately. A little too warm. A little too restless. You all agree it's probably nothing. Your jug is full now. You heft it awkwardly, no handle, and nod to Marcus as you head back down the street. A child races past and nearly knocks it from your hands. You resist the urge to trip him, barely. You've had your drink. You've seen your street. You've survived the staircase. So far, so good. Back inside your insula, your stomach begins its daily protest. Not a polite gurgle. A threat. It demands food. Preferably warm, possibly dead, and definitely not yesterday's soggy lentils. You oublier. With what little you have, a small crust of barley bread, hardened overnight into something that could be classified as weapon grade. You knock it on the table to test it. It thuds decisively. Excellent. You tear a piece off. It resists. You chew it like it owes you money. It tastes like flour and effort. No butter. Not honey. Not even a smear of olive paste. Just grain, old oil, and a hint of clay from wherever you dropped it last night. Beside it, you have a handful of olives. They're wrinkled, sour, and floating in a dish that might once have held wine, or vinegar, or possibly both. They squeak when you bite them. You decide not to think too hard about that. For drink, you pour yourself a shallow cup of watered-down wine. Breakfast wine. Totally normal. Everyone drinks it, even children. It's low in alcohol, which means it's less likely to kill you than the water. You take a sip. It's sharp, smoky, and somehow both thin and bitter. The flavor profile is accidentally set on fire, then forgotten. You think longingly of fresh goat cheese. You saw it yesterday in the Forum, nestled in straw, glistening with little beads of brine. But your purse said no. It always says no. Cheese is for birthdays, feast days, and wealthy uncles. You are not a wealthy uncle. You are a person chewing olives and trying not to gag on the pit. As you eat, your eyes drift to the small hole in the wall that lets in morning light. Dust dances lazily through the beam. You watch it and think about nothing. Thinking is expensive. Better to chew and swallow and keep your mind blank. Like the expression you use when your landlord brings up rent. Your cousin stirs behind you, stretching and cursing in equal measure. He asks if there's any food left. You say no, even though there's half a fig in your hand. He grunts and rolls over. Your relationship is founded on mutual inconvenience. You look down at your bowl. One last olive remains. You consider saving it, a symbolic token for later. You eat it, and now your teeth hurt, just slightly. A dull throb that says, "Congratulations. This tooth may be leaving you soon." Dental care in Pompeii is minimal. There's a man at the bathhouse who claims he can pull teeth with a bronze clamp and a prayer. You plan to avoid him at all costs. Outside, the city is fully alive now. Voices rise, wheels clatter over stone, and somewhere a dog is barking like it has a vendetta. You wipe your fingers on your tunic, which is already dirty, and stand up. You've had your breakfast. You are not satisfied, but you are fed. Technically, it's time to face the rest of the day. Getting dressed in ancient Pompeii is not a glamorous affair. You own exactly one tunic, a dull, once white rectangle of linen stitched into a shape that flatters no one, especially not you. It's wrinkled, stained from something oily and brown that refuses to identify itself, and smells faintly of sea air, charcoal, and goat. You pull it over your head and feel the familiar embrace of damp fabric and crushed dreams. Underwear. No such luxury. If you're lucky, you might have a subligaculum, a sort of ancient loincloth, but today you're feeling breezy. Literally, there's a tear near the hem that flaps when you walk. You make a mental note to fix it. You've made this note every day for 2 weeks. The tunic clings uncomfortably, still slightly damp from yesterday's sweat. Laundry is a twice-a-month ordeal. You usually drop your clothes off at the Fullonica Pompeii's version of a dry cleaner. Except the dry part is a lie, and the cleaning involves human urine. Yes, actual pee, collected from public jars and used as detergent. Apparently, the ammonia helps. You try not to think about it when you wear the results. You belt the tunic at the waist with a cord that was once a sandal strap. It works, kind of. Then you lace up your calci, your leather sandals. They're cracked, worn, and have zero arch support. Your heel blisters complain immediately. You consider going barefoot. But the last time you did that, you stepped on a fish spine near the docks and limped for 3 days. You've learned your lesson. Sort of. You check your appearance in your makeshift mirror, a dented bit of bronze that reflects your face like a funhouse dream sequence. Your hair is a mess. So you wet your fingers and pat it down into something vaguely Roman. You rub a bit of oil on your arms to seem respectable. It's rancid. You pretend it smells fine. Accessories. You've got one. A scrap of red-dyed wool tied around your wrist. You don't remember where you got it. But it feels lucky. And luck is the only thing cheaper than bread right now. You glance down at your feet. A smear of last night's street grime is already working its way up your ankle. You sigh and wipe it on the doorstep. You're dressed, sort of clean, not actively bleeding, by Pompeian standards. You're looking fantastic. Your cousin mumbles something about needing a new tunic. You nod sympathetically while secretly hoping he doesn't borrow yours again. The last time he did, it came back with wine stains and 2 fewer buttons. He blamed a minor festival incident. You didn't ask. Out the window, you hear the sounds of carts, coins, and the distant roar of someone yelling about taxes. It's time. You sling your satchel over your shoulder. Inside a wooden cone, 1 stale fig, and the remains of your optimism. The day awaits. So does the heat, the noise, and the distinct possibility of stepping in something biological. But you're dressed, which means you've already won 1 small battle. Even if you smell like you lost it, you step out into the street, and it hits you all at once, the warm slap of mid-morning Pompeii. The city doesn't greet you so much as it lunges. The air is thick with a stew of smells, roasting chickpeas, donkey sweat, perfumed oil, and something that might be burning or might just be your neighbour's attempt at soap making. Someone yells, "Adult barks Beck." You blink twice and begin the slow shuffle down the lane. The stones beneath your feet are uneven, worn slick by years of sandals. Carts. and unfortunate weather. They gleam slightly in the morning light, moist in a way that feels untrustworthy. You do not walk. You navigate. You dodge discarded fish bones, a broken amphora, and what you pray is mud, but no, probably isn't. It's early, but the streets are already awake. Pompeii is not a city that believes in silence. Your building's stairwell opens directly into one of the narrow side alleys, the kind where walls lean a little too close together and gossip echoes off the plaster. You pass a wooden door that's slightly ajar. Inside, someone's snoring loudly and unrepentantly. A chicken wanders out. It looks at you like you owe it money. You nod. Respectfully, you cross into the main thoroughfare, a decumanus, as the fancy maps say, where the chaos blooms into full, living colour. A man is hawking dates from a wooden cart, slapping them for emphasis. A woman argues with a fishmonger over the suspicious size of a tuna. Children dart between adults, laughing or yelling or both. A merchant tries to sell you a bronze charm shaped like a rather explicit body part. You decline. Politely, as you continue, you pass a man emptying a chamber pot from an upstairs window. He shouts cave canem as it splashes onto the street. It's supposed to mean, beware of the dog, but you suspect he's just being theatrical. You step wide and keep moving. You're not in the mood to wear someone else's dinner. A funeral procession pauses traffic at the next corner. It's small, just a few family members and a hired mourner wailing with suspicious professionalism. You don't know the deceased, but you pretend to look solemn. That's the rule. Then you walk on, avoiding eye contact with the guy selling second-hand sandals next to the body. As you approach the forum, the buildings get fancier columns, frescoes, mosaic thresholds spelling out hail, guests, or beware of thieves. You know which one is more useful. The crowd thickens, and you squeeze past a donkey carrying 3 crates of cabbages and a man preaching loudly about Jupiter's wrath. You're not sure who smells worse. Finally, you pose. The sun is above the rooftops now, heating the clay walls and turning every breath into soup. You wipe your forehead with your sleeve. It's already damp. You consider heading toward the fountain for another splash, but decide to press on. You're not even at the market yet, and already you've sweated through your tunic, dodged at least 2 questionable fluids, and been offered a questionable love potion by a woman with 1 tooth and a knowing wink. Just another quiet morning in Pompeii. The deeper you go into the street, the louder everything becomes, not in volume, necessarily, but in presence. Every scent, every footstep, every voice seems to bounce between the stone walls, like it's trying to crawl inside your skull. You can't tell if it's the acoustics or just Pompeii's permanent state of alert chaos. Either way, it's not relaxing. You sidestep a man balancing a crate of figs on his head and nearly walk into a stray dog chasing a child who may or may not have thrown a pebble. The dog isn't barking. The child is. You press against the wall and let the scene pass like a parade you didn't buy tickets for. A woman with arms full of bread loaves passes by muttering about taxes and mould. Her tunic is smeared with ash. You wonder if it's from the oven or just the street. A sharp smell hits your nose. Sulfur, maybe, or boiled cabbage, possibly both. You pretend you didn't smell it. The noise isn't shouting exactly, it's more like layered urgency. A smith hammers a rhythm in the distance. A fruit vendor yells about apples as if you owe him personally. Two men argue in Greek over a broken vineyard. Somewhere, a flute is playing badly. You turn the corner and nearly walk into a man relieving himself against a wall. He doesn't break eye contact. You do. Quickly, he adjusts his tunic and walks off like that was a perfectly normal exchange. Which, unfortunately, it was. Stepping over a stream of something trickling from a side alley. You notice how the street slopes subtly. The Romans were nothing if not practical. They designed these roads with central stepping stones and shallow gutters, so waste could flow theoretically downhill. In practice, it means your sandals are constantly at war with the city's digestive system. You hop onto a raised stone, nearly lose your balance, and then steady yourself against a building with faded frescoes depicting something mythological and suspiciously naked. It's peeling at the corners, probably not part of the original design. I lurch past you, the wheels groaning over the flagstones. The driver spits into the gutter and whips the donkey lightly. The donkey glares at you like you're part of the problem. You glare back. As you near the next intersection, the street widens slightly, and a breeze, thin and apologetic, lifts the edge of your tunic. It carries with it the faint scent of the sea, or perhaps a fishmonger who's given up entirely. You take a deeper breath than usual. It still tastes like dust, smoke, and brine, but less concentrated. It's the closest thing to fresh air you've had all morning. You stop for a moment beside a wall with graffiti scratched into the stone, not painted. It reads, "Secundus was here." A simple message, a little reminder that someone else once stood exactly where you are now, probably also itchy and deeply unimpressed with how their day was going. You smile, just slightly, and then you keep walking. The fountain ahead gurgles like a tired stomach, its lion-shaped spout spitting out a thin ribbon of water that arcs into the worn stone basin. You step toward it with reverence, not because it's holy, but because your jug is nearly empty and your armpits are committing tiny acts of rebellion. Pompeii may be loud, dirty, and vaguely cursed, but its aqueducts, surprisingly reliable. The crowd around the fountain is standard issue, a mix of housewives, slaves, grumbling porters, and one man who appears to be talking to a fig. You ease your way in, nodding to the woman already filling her amphora. Her forearms are stronger than yours. Her frown could flatten a senator. You do not speak. The water is cool, crisp, and faintly mineral. You splash some on your neck and under your arms, which feels less like cleaning and more like apologizing to yourself. The relief is instant. Though brief, the sun is rising now, and the walls around you bake like clay ovens. In another hour, you'll be sweating through your soul again. You fill your jug, listening to the fountain's rhythmic splash. The design is genius. You'll admit it. Aqueducts bring water from miles away, flowing through the city in a hidden network of lead-lined pipes. Everyone uses the public fountains, even the rich, though theirs are carved nicer and less likely to have children throwing pebbles into them. Your friend Flavia sidles up beside you. She's balancing a basket on her head and chewing what might be a date or a very unfortunate plum. "Did you hear?" she whispers. "Another tremor last night." You nod, trying to look unimpressed. "Must have been the wind." Flavia snorts. "Right. The kind of wind that makes your ceiling tiles fall." You shrug. They needed replacing anyway. The truth is, you did feel it. A soft rumble in the floorboards. A slight creak from the walls. Nothing dramatic. But it's not the first time, and the ground's been twitchy lately. Still. You laugh it off. Everyone does. This is Pompeii. Earthquakes happen. You even had a big one 17 years ago. The city cracked, but didn't crumble. Life continued, as it always does, with patchwork repairs and generous denial. Flavia finishes filling her amphora and gives you a look. "You coming to the forum today?" You nod. "Just need to drop this off." She eyes your tunic. "That stain is new?" You look down. It is. You don't remember how it got there. Possibly olive oil, possibly fate. You both turn from the fountain and step back into the flow of the street. The noise wrapping around you again like an unwashed blanket. the sound of sandals slapping stone, distant hammering, laughter, arguing, life. You've got your water. You've got your stain. You've got your Flavia. The day is underway, and the lion spout fountain gurgles on behind you, as if trying to say something you're not quite ready to hear. The forum looms ahead, a wide-open clearing in the maze of stone and noise, like a pause button someone pressed on the otherwise chaotic layout of the city. You've always liked this place, in a begrudging sort of way. It smells less like people and more like stone and sun-dry, hot and vaguely civic. Stepping into the open square, you're immediately swallowed by voices. Not shouts, exactly, but proclamations. There's something about public spaces that makes Romans believe they must narrate everything they do. A man is selling dates loudly. Another is arguing over the price of wool louder. Someone else just sneezed and 3 people blessed him out of habit and superstition. You glance around. The forum is surrounded on all sides by colonnades, columns reaching skyward like ribs of a stone skeleton. Behind them, temples, shops, administrative buildings, and the ever-watchful statues of people who are very dead and very important, at least according to their togas and inscriptions. One of the statues is missing a nose. No one's fixed it. You assume it's symbolic. To your left, a group of slaves unloads a shipment of imported pottery. You can hear the overseer snapping instructions while balancing on the edge of what looks like a very unstable barrel. One wrong move, and he's amphora soup. You watch with mild interest, mostly because it's the only thing happening that doesn't involve someone trying to sell you something. You pass by a graffiti wall you've seen a dozen times, but it still makes you smirk. The weaver's wife is a drunk. Marcus owes me 2 asses. I screwed the barmaid. All elegantly scratched in varying states of literacy. You can't tell if it's juvenile or profound. Probably both. Pompeii has layers. At the center of the forum, an old man in a frayed toga is feeding crumbs to pigeons with the air of a senator in exile. You wonder if he ever held office or just liked to pretend. He offers you a crumb. You decline. The pigeons accept. You spot Flavia again, chatting with a fabric seller. She lifts a bolt of cloth, holds it up to the sun, then grimaces and hands it back like it insulted her ancestors. You consider going over, but your stomach distracts you. Again, bread wasn't enough. You need something hot, something substantial, possibly something still moving. At this point, you're not picky. You meander toward the food stalls lining the far side of the square. One of them is selling garum, that fermented fish sauce. Pompeians put on everything, including things that should never involve fish. The smell is aggressive. You move on. Another stall has lentil stew simmering in a wide clay pot. It smells. Okay. You ask for a small bowl. The vendor hands it over with a piece of bread that looks like it lost a fight with time. You eat anyway. The stew is thick, warm, and entirely unidentifiable. You taste salt, garlic, and something you're 80% sure is goat. You don't ask. You eat slowly, watching the forum unfold life, commerce, flirtation, deception, and a few children trying to catch a pigeon with a basket. They fail. You finish your stew. Pompeii is nothing if not consistent, loud, smelly, sun-drenched, and alive, and somewhere beneath your feet, the ground is watching. Finished with lunch and still chewing a twig to clean your teeth, a common technique. Too effective if you enjoy the taste of bark and residual lentil, you start wandering toward the edge of the forum, where the shadow of the Temple of Jupiter stretches long and straight across the paving stones. You cross through it, involuntarily respectful, though you're not particularly devout. Most people aren't. They just don't want to make Jupiter angry, or smell like they did. At the temple steps, a priest in white wool robes stands motionless, his eyes half-lidded as if channeling some divine wisdom, or possibly just surviving the heat. His sandals are cleaner than yours. His expression suggests that's intentional. You walk past quietly, your footsteps echoing against the stone like an apology. A child darts out from behind a column, nearly colliding with your hip. He's holding a clay model of a gladiator, waving it triumphantly before vanishing into the crowd. You're not sure if he's playing or practicing. Probably both. You wander past a stall selling charms, rough-cut stones, carved bones, bronze amulets in the shape of animals, hands, or things less polite. The vendor eyes you like a cat sizing up an injured bird. For protection, he says, holding up a tiny phallus on a string. Against evil, you nod politely and keep walking. Temples are everywhere here, not just Jupiter's. There's one for Apollo nearby, and another for Venus, tucked between a perfumery and a bakery that always smells like scorched raisins. The gods are well represented in Pompeii. So are ghosts. So are curses. There's something about this city, its heat, its stone, its lingering tension that makes people a little more superstitious than usual. You pass a wall where someone's nailed a wax tablet covered in handwriting. It's a public notice about an upcoming festival. There will be games, feasts, sacrifices, and, if the rumors are true, amime, you sigh. Romans love mimes. You don't. As you walk, you catch pieces of conversation. One woman is talking about her dream full of snakes and falling teeth. She's convinced it's a bad omen. Her friend nods solemnly and says she should make an offering to Mercury. You resist the urge to suggest she just skip lunch next time. Two men argue about taxes near a fig cart. One of them insists the rates are unjust. The other insists he should stop buying so many figs. You don't get involved. You pause at a shadowy corner of the forum, a place where the breeze hesitates. Someone has drawn a chalk figure on the wall, a simple shape. Stick limbs, arms outstretched, a line through its chest. A joke, a warning. You stare for a second too long. Then a shout from a fish vendor startles you, and you move on, shaking it off. Pompeii is like that. Sometimes it presses in, sometimes it whispers. Sometimes it just smells like fermented eels and old prayer oil. You breathe in deeply, then regret it. There's still half a day ahead. The heat has shifted from suggestion to threat. It bears down like a judgment, turning the city's stone into warm anvils and your tunic into a damp dish rag. The midday sun doesn't just shine, it interrogates. You press your back against a shaded wall, letting the plaster steal a little of your body's warmth. It's not much, but it's better than melting like a wax tablet in a public records office. Across the way, a group of older men are seated on a low bench, doing what Pompeian elders do best, commentating on everything. One of them is gesturing wildly, explaining something about a horse race, while the others grunt with practiced disinterest. You suspect the story has been told before, possibly this morning, possibly every morning. You move on. Pompeii has no grid. The city is an uneven quilt of alleyways, courtyards, and trap-like intersections where you will absolutely bump into someone carrying something inconvenient. Today, it's a boy with a sack of flour nearly his size. You try to dodge. He tries to dodge. You both fail. A little cloud of flour puffs out from the sack, settling over your arm like a silent accusation. The boy mumbles something that sounds like sorry and disappears faster than a tax collector at a dinner invitation. You pat the flour off and keep going, now lightly breaded and wondering if this is how street pigeons feel. You slip through a side street lined with small homes, some modest, some secretly wealthy. Pompeii is layered that way. From the outside, you can't always tell who's rich. Sometimes the baker's house has better frescoes than the magistrate's. Money talks, but in Pompeii, it sometimes whispers behind painted walls. You pass a doorway left ajar, catching a flash of mosaic floor and the sound of someone humming. The tiles form a hunting scene, men with nets, dogs with jaws wide open, a stag mid-leap forever. It's beautiful in that precise Roman way order carved from chaos, blood turned decorative. Further along, you pass an alley shrine. It's tiny, a brick niche with a painted image of a household god. Someone's left an offering, a small loaf of bread, already half nibbled by a rat who looks deeply unbothered by your presence. You nod at the rat. It doesn't return the gesture. The street bends again and spits you out near a taberna, not quite a tavern, more like an ancient Roman snack bar. Its counter is pockmarked stone, with round holes for serving pots. You peer in. One holds olives, another, what might be stewed lentils. The last one is either eel or something that once knew an eel personally. You politely decline to eat. The owner grunts hello, wiping his hands on a tunic that might once have been white. You exchange a few coins for a cup of watered wine. It's warm, slightly gritty. You drink it anyway. It helps, barely. You lean against the wall, sipping and watching a stray dog sniff at a statue's foot. It's a quiet moment, a pause in the heat and the motion. For a second, Pompeii feels still, and then someone nearby drops a jar. It shatters. The dog yelps. Someone swears. Life resumes. The broken jar leaves a sharp mosaic of red clay on the ground, which is quickly inspected by every passerby like it's part of the entertainment. One man kicks a shard aside with the solemnity of a philosopher, then continues munching his fig as if deep in thought. You step over the mess, careful not to slice open your sandal or your mourning. You turn left into a cooler alley, narrower, shaded, and vaguely damp in the way that ancient alleys often are moist without memory. The stones underfoot are slick, not from rain, but from decades of water sloshed, waste dumped, and footsteps repeated. You tread carefully, arms tucked in, avoiding contact with the grimy walls that look like they might exhale mold if provoked. Halfway down, you pass a tiny doorway, no taller than your chest, leading into what smells unmistakably like wet wool and boiled turnips. A domus, maybe, or a cramped tenement kitchen. Inside, someone is singing, a woman, possibly old, possibly just tired. The tune isn't familiar, but it's Roman in that tuneless, chant-like way. It loops endlessly, without melody but not without weight. You emerge near the back of a communal latrine. You didn't plan to visit it, but it seems to have found you. The smell is assertive, a gentle reminder that plumbing exists, but mercy does not. The latrine is public. Stone benches lined with keyhole cutouts and a water channel running underneath, dragging waste away like an obedient servant. There's a sponge on a stick soaking in vinegar water nearby. You don't ask. A slave stands nearby, looking bored with his own existence, which is impressive given the setting. He holds a bucket and a vacant expression. You nod at him. He does not nod back. It's that kind of place. Moving past, you catch the tail end of a street performance. A man in a donkey mask dances while another plays a panpipe with such determination it seems personal. A small crowd claps politely. One child throws a date pit. The performer bows as if he just completed a tragedy in 3 acts. You keep walking. Pompeii is like this. Public life bleeds into private moments, and vice versa. privacy, as an idea, is mostly ornamental. Everyone hears everything. Everyone smells everything. The walls may be thick, but the air is thin. You stop to rest near a bathhouse, leaning against the stone as bathers come and go in various states of dampness. Their chatter fills the air, gossip about a merchant's runaway slave, speculation about new imports from Alexandria, someone insisting that the earth shook again last night. You glance at the ground. You didn't feel anything. Or maybe you did. Maybe you're just used to it now. The bathhouse itself is a marvel. Heated floors, vaulted ceilings, steaming caldariums and freezing frigidariums. A whole Roman theatre of water and naked social maneuvering. You're not headed in today. It's not your bath day, but you watch with quiet awe as a senator's son slips on the marble and pretends it was a dance move. You smile, barely, and continue on. Beneath a sun that doesn't blink, the sun, now past its peak, settles into a steadier burn. Less punishing, but no less present. It glints off rooftops and polished sandals, off bronze amulets and oil-slicked hair. You find yourself back in a broader street, one lined with shops' open fronts, framed by wooden shutters folded back like the wings of a tired bird. Every stall is offering something essential, or pretending to. You pass a cobbler carefully stitching a sandal sole, his lips pursed like the thread. He doesn't look up. Beside him, a butcher is cleaving cuts of something red and sinewy with a cleaver that's seen too many summers. The meat steams in the heat. Flies dance like it's a festival. You move on quickly, nose wrinkled, stomach suspicious. At the next corner, you pass a man selling scrolls, or, more accurately, scraps of scrolls with things hastily copied from people who probably hadn't read the originals either. You catch the word Seneca scribbled on one. The man is shouting something about wisdom and half-price poetry. You nod as though deeply moved, then continue, not ready to commit to philosophy on an empty wallet. Your next stop is the Fullonica, the laundry workshop. You don't need anything washed today, but the smell hits you before you even consider stopping. Urine, lots of it. Human, fermented, used to clean togas. You pass quickly, trying not to breathe through your mouth or your nose, which leaves your ears the only safe sensory organ. And unfortunately, the men inside are arguing loudly about whose turn it is to stomp the cloth. You hear the phrase lazy-footed mule hurled with conviction. You keep walking. Just ahead, a painted tavern sign depicts a rooster standing over a fallen fox. You pose. You've passed this one before, but it still makes you squint. Is it a warning A metaphor? Or just another Pompeian joke that you're not quite Roman enough to get inside? It's dim, cool, and smells like roasted chickpeas and yesterday's wine. You step in, mostly for the shade. A woman behind the counter nods, wiping her hands on a cloth she clearly stopped believing in years ago. You ask for something simple. She brings out a plate of olives, half a loaf of bread, and what she calls cheese, but which might have been cheese in a previous life. You eat slowly. The olives are briny and oily, sliding around on the plate like they're avoiding commitment. The bread is hard. You use it to scoop what you can. It works. Mostly, it also scratches the roof of your mouth. Behind you, two men debate a chariot race that happened 3 days ago like it's current politics. One insists the driver cheated. The other insists the gods intervened. Neither is willing to be wrong. You admire their stamina. As you leave the tavern, you spot another bit of graffiti scratched into the outside wall. Love is a game of slaves. You think about it. You don't necessarily agree, but it does feel true. And then a rumble underfoot. Soft, quick, subtle. You pose. So does the wine cup on a nearby table. Then silence again. Probably just thunder. Probably. You step back into the street, blinking as the light ambushes your eyes after the tavern's shade. The warmth presses close again. Not as sharp as midday, but still sticky. Like the breath of someone who's been chewing fennel for 3 hours. Your feet feel heavier now. Not from exhaustion, but from the weight of everything you've already seen today. The laundry, the fighting vendors, the murals that never stop winking. The crowd thins a little as you near the edge of the commercial district. Residential homes line this area, with high walls and iron-studded doors meant to keep secrets in. Not visitors out. You pass one with a dog mosaic at the entrance, Cave Canum. It says, "Beware of the dog." The irony is that the actual dog lounging in the doorway couldn't be less interested in guarding anything. He opens one eye at your presence, then returns to dreaming of leftover bread crusts and less eventful days. A cart rolls by behind you, its wooden wheels creaking under the weight of amphorae filled with olive oil. The driver, sun-dark and stone-faced, mutters something about a cracked axle. You don't ask questions. You've learnt not to. One of the side alleys here leads to the local baker's. The scent of warm ash and sourdough tells you before your eyes do. The baker's shop is part oven, part factory, blackened walls, floor dusted in flour, slaves working without pause. One is stamping dough into flat discs, while another feeds long paddles into a circular oven built directly into the wall. The fire roars, and the heat wraps around your ankles like a living thing. You get a small loaf, still warm, with an imprint stamped into the crust, a mark to show which household ordered it. Branding, even for bread. The crust is crisp, and the inside is doughy enough to threaten your teeth. Still, it's good, solid. The kind of food you can eat without worrying where it came from. Mostly, you take a seat on a low ledge nearby, tearing off pieces of bread and watching as a boy passes with a bucket sloshing something suspicious. He grins at you like he's in on some cosmic joke. Maybe he is. Maybe you are, too. Across the street, a woman is painting the frame of her doorway. Red. As usual. The kind of red you only get from crushed bugs and imported minerals. She hums as she works, focused and proud. You wonder who she's trying to impress the gods. The neighbours. Or herself. Maybe all three. The wind picks up suddenly just a little, and with it comes a strange smell. Like sulphur or eggs left too long in the sun. It's faint. Just enough to wrinkle your nose. No one else seems to notice. You glance up. The sky is clear. The mountain looms. As always. Quiet and dignified, its peak softened by haze. You finish the last bite of your bread and stand. There's more of the day to walk through, more lives brushing past your own, more stones that remember every foot that ever struck them, and the ground beneath you, well, it hasn't rumbled again. Yet, your next steps carry you into the quieter part of the city, where the streets taper into something less theatrical and more lived in. There's less shouting here, fewer merchants, and more doorways half open to let in air or neighbours or just the gods, who were always assumed to be passing by unnoticed. The stones beneath your feet are older here, smoothed not by chariots or carts, but by sandals, sweeping brooms, and the dragging heels of people who have seen too many summers. You pause near a fountain. It's small and chipped, but water still dribbles from the spout like it's doing you a favour. You cup your hands beneath it, splashing your face, and for a moment it feels like you could stay here forever, letting this meagre flow cleanse more than just the dust from your brow. A small girl walks up behind you, waiting her turn, with a patience that suggests she's done this before. You step aside. She fills a jug and vanishes down an alley without a word. As you dry your hands on your tunic, a voice calls from a nearby doorway. It's an older woman, arms powdered with flour, offering you a fig. Not selling offering. Maybe she mistook you for someone she knows. Or maybe she's just the kind of person who needs to give something away every few hours or burst. You accept, nodding your thanks. The fig is soft and sweet, sticky in your teeth. You eat it slowly, because food like this doesn't arrive often without a price. A man walks by, leading a goose on a string. Neither of them looks particularly happy about it. The goose honks in a tone that suggests long-standing grievance. The man says nothing, resigned to the kind of fate that involves poultry and public embarrassment. You find a shaded ledge to sit for a while, half listening to the sounds around you, sandals scraping stone, the occasional cough, a clay pot cracking in the distance, followed by a string of words you definitely wouldn't repeat in the presence of a senator. Somewhere nearby, someone is playing a flute badly and loudly. The musical equivalent of stepping on a rake. The air is changing, just slightly. It's not cooler, but it's heavier. You notice it only because it presses differently against your skin, a barely there tension that rides the wind in from the direction of the sea or the mountain. It's hard to tell. You look up, but the sky still smiles, the same dry smile it's had all day. Blue, empty, innocent. A few more people pass, a husband and wife arguing about laundry, a boy with a tray of eggs, a pair of women whispering behind hands that are too soft to have done anything innocent. It's all so normal, so deeply, historically average. That's the strange thing about Pompeii. Nothing remarkable happens until everything does. You shift your weight, feeling a strange tightness in your leg. Just the walking, probably. Just the heat, just the kind of afternoon that teaches you how to be grateful for stillness. The street begins to slope gently downward, leading you toward the outer districts, places where the smells grow more specific, the accents more varied, and the walls more honest. Fewer murals here, fewer attempts to impress. The homes are smaller, their paint chipped or simply absent, and the doors are more often open than shut, not in welcome, but in surrender. You pass a man seated on a stool outside his home, sharpening a blade that's been sharpened too many times. Sparks flit off with each drag across the stone. He doesn't look up. His wife, inside, is berating someone, a son, a servant, or a memory. You can't tell. Her voice bounces off the walls like it's trying to escape. Near the corner, you spot another bit of graffiti, this one newer, perhaps only days old. It reads, "Secundus was here." That's all. Just a name. A statement of having existed. Someone felt the need to carve permanence into plaster. Maybe because the days themselves feel so easily lost. Maybe because history has a habit of forgetting everyone, but the loud, the rich, or the doomed. You sit on a low wall across from a tannery. Bad idea. The smell of animal skins, fermented urine, and sun-baked labor clings to the air like a warning to... The tanners are busy half naked, shoulders browned by years of disregard. One of them glances up, then back down to his vat, as though your presence doesn't even register against the scale of daily misery. You stand again, brushing grit from your tunic, and meander into a Chiera lane. A donkey brays behind a wooden gate. Chickens scatter in front of you like poorly organized thoughts. A small shrine rests in the crook of a wall, half hidden behind ivy. It's for the lares, the household gods, their tiny figures smudged with old soot and flower petals. Someone has tucked a tiny crust of bread beside them. You wonder if it was an act of faith, or just someone too shy to offer anything bigger. Further along, you pass a woman carrying a basket of laundry, balanced expertly on her head. She walks with the kind of posture that comes not from pride, but from years of balancing everything linens, burdens, expectations. Her eyes flick toward you, then away, and that's the entire interaction. Sometimes Pompeii feels like that. Everyone brushing past, no one really touching. A man snores beneath a window. He's lying on a blanket that might once have had colour. His hand twitches like he's chasing something in a dream. You wonder what people in Pompeii dream about. Not the future. Romans don't really believe in that. Maybe a feast. Maybe a bath. Maybe just one day with no surprises. You round the last bend in the lane and pause. A brise rises. Unusually cool. It brings with it a strange smell, dry, metallic, and oddly distant. You look up at the sky again. Still clear. Still silent. Still holding its breath. You find yourself drawn toward the amphitheatre, Pompeii's Colosseum of blood and cheer, tucked into the southeastern corner like a secret craving. It's not show day, but even when silent, the structure looms. The walls are weather-worn and stained with time. The entranceways like the mouths of beasts waiting to be fed. You wander toward it anyway. Because some places don't require invitation, just footsteps. The gates are open. Always open. You slip inside. The stone steps rising around you like ribs in a massive skeleton. You climb a few rows up and sit. The worn seat warm beneath you. It's strangely peaceful. No crowds. No years. Just echoes, old ones. Too faint to disturb the quiet. You imagine what it would sound like, full sandals stomping. Men shouting bets. Vendors hawking dates and watered wine. And the occasional roar when someone's luck ran out in the sand below. The arena itself is empty now, save for a pair of boys tossing a pine cone back and forth, pretending it's a javelin. They giggle, chase it, argue, and run again. One of them trips and laughs harder. Youth, it seems, hasn't changed in 2,000 years. You sit back against the stone wall, watching the sky through the amphitheatre's open air. The sun hangs low now, beginning its slow slide toward tomorrow. It casts long shadows across the arena floor, turning columns into giants and stairwells into secrets. A pigeon flutter past, startled by something you didn't hear. You feel a pressure behind your eyes, not a headache. Not quite. More like the heat pressing from the inside out. It could be dehydration, or maybe you're just tired. Pompeii has a way of tiring you that isn't physical. It's all the watching, all the listening. You hear footsteps, not yours, not the boys. A group of men and women is making their way down the far stairwell, laughing too loudly for the space. One of them is singing a crude song about a gladiator and a senator's daughter. The rhyme doesn't work, but that doesn't stop him. His friends cackle like crows in a vineyard. You decide it's time to leave. Back out through the arches, back into the warm, dusty light of the evening. A vendor has set up just beyond the gates, selling little wax figures of Hercules. You decline. You've got enough gods watching you already. As you walk back through the narrowing streets, you start to notice things you didn't before. A crack in the plaster running a little too far. A statue's base slightly tilted. A fountain trickling slower than usual. Nothing big. Nothing worth mentioning. And yet, there's a tightness in the air again. Like Pompeii is holding something behind its back. You hear a low sound. Far off. Could be thunder. Could be something else. But no one reacts. So neither do you. After all, it's just another day. And the mountain hasn't moved. Not yet. The sun is beginning its slow retreat now, slipping behind terracotta roofs and casting a syrupy gold over Pompeii's tired streets. You walk with it, not toward home exactly, but toward whatever feels softest in the light. A courtyard. Maybe a neighbor's stoop. A place to pretend time moves slowly here. Or not at all. You pass a woman brushing ash off her windowsill. Not that kind of ash, just the everyday kind. The kind that floats in from stoves and bakeries and incense bowls. Collecting on surfaces like the city's breath made visible, she wipes in circles. Methodical. Muttering. Something about keeping the household clean for Mercury. Or maybe it was Mars. At this point, even the gods must mix together in the dust. Further down the lane, a group of children is chasing a hoop with a stick, screaming with the kind of joy that only exists in places where responsibility hasn't yet attached itself. One trips, skinning a knee on the stone. He doesn't cry, just swears softly, then gets up and runs harder. You admire that. You used to be that. Your stomach growls. The bread from earlier has evaporated into memory. You sniff the air. Someone nearby is cooking lentils. Spiced with cumin and vinegar, the aroma is sharp, earthy, and honest. You follow it like a stray animal and find a couple sitting outside their doorway with bowls in hand. They don't invite you to sit, but they don't shoo you either. You watch them for a moment. The woman laughs at something the man says, then elbows him as if to scold him for being too funny. You walk on, not wanting to disturb the kind of peace that smells like home. Near the edge of a plaza, a man is polishing a statue. It's a Venus all curves and cold marble. He talks to her like she's listening, which, to him, she probably is. Romans don't believe in separation between gods and furniture. The sacred is in everything: tiles, togas, spoiled wine, and yes, even the moment you decide to pray out loud to a statue with half a nose, you turn toward one of the larger temples. Not to go in, that's a different kind of day, but just to see it. The columns stand tall, solemn, like they know things you don't. A few worshippers linger, lighting tiny offerings, muttering wishes. You hear one ask for a good harvest, another for the return of her missing husband, and one whispered so softly it barely makes the air, who asks the gods to wait. Just wait. You feel that the light is softer now, less orange, more amber. It slides down walls, clings to leaves, brushes, faces. You feel it on your neck. And for a second, you stop walking. Just stand there. The ground is still beneath you, but only just. You make your way back through the shrinking arteries of Pompeii, where alleyways curve like the folds of a sleeping body, and the walls seem to breathe with you. Evening has fully arrived now. Not with drama, but with slow exhale, a sigh settling over the stones. The rooftops, the worn sandals of every soul making their way home, or to wherever it is people pretend to belong. Your legs ash. Not in protest, but in memory. Today has been long, or maybe all Pompeian days feel this long stitched together by dust and noise, and the constant choreography of survival. You pass a doorway left ajar. Inside a family clustered around a low table, passing bowls of lentils, olives, and something that looks like fish but smells more like regret. They don't notice you. Or maybe they do and don't care. In Pompeii, presence is expected, but privacy is a luxury. A drunk man stumbles into view, singing a love song to someone who is either imaginary or recently divorced. He raises his cup to the moon and to you, in that order, before collapsing on a doorstep and snoring with the dignity of a collapsed goat. You step over him carefully, as if not to break the spell. The torches are being lit now, oil lamps flickering to life with that fluttering orange glow that never quite settles. Their light dances over plaster walls and reveals, briefly, another message scrawled in red. I am yours for a good coin. You're not sure if it's an advertisement or a warning. possibly both. The line between sacred and profane here is thinner than the paper they never invented. As the lamps glow stronger, you see shadows gather in corners where they don't belong. Not ominous, just quiet reminders that the day is ending, and with it, your time among the noise. You sit for a while on the edge of a public fountain, watching the reflection of firelight flicker across the surface. The water is still now, not fresh, not clean, but still. A young man walks past with a lyre slung over his back. He hums. Not for you. Not even for himself, really just to occupy the space between silence and thought. You recognize the tune, Vogue. It's a hymn to Apollo, or maybe a drinking song that borrowed the melody. Either way, it works. You hum too, just under your breath, like you've always known it, somewhere nearby. A dog barks once, sharp and sudden, then stops. The air feels colder now, just a touch, enough to raise a hair or two. You rub your arms, though you're not sure whether it's chill or something less measurable. The sky is beginning to darken properly. Not the painted twilight of Roman frescoes, but the real thing, deep and slow, with stars flickering like reluctant witnesses. You begin walking again. But slower now, like something is watching. You drift toward the edge of the city, where buildings thin and the earth begins to reclaim its shape. Gardens reappear here, not the grand villa kind with sculpted hedges and imported statues, but the simpler ones, rows of herbs, a few fig trees, grapevines curling like lazy snakes around wooden stakes. You pass a man crouched in the dirt, whispering something to his plants. Not poetry, instructions, as if Basil obeys. The air is cooler in these outskirts, laced with soil and wet stone. You can smell rosemary in the wind, crushed under someone's sandal. The dust no longer clings, it floats, freer out here, as if even grime respects the boundary between commerce and contemplation. You step into a small field near a shrine to Demeter. It's little more than a painted niche and a cracked statue holding wheat. Someone has left a bowl of dried beans beside her humble sincere. You sit nearby, not to pray, just to rest. The silence here isn't empty. It's padded, like being underwater or buried. From here, the city looks smaller. The rooftops bunch together like gossipers at a bathhouse, red and rounded and strangely gentle. Smoke curls upward in lazy trails from kitchen fires. You wonder how many meals are being cooked right now, how many goodbyes spoken, how many arguments unfinished. A shepherd walks by, his goats clattering after him with the urgency of animals who always assume they're late. He nods at you but doesn't stop. No one lingers long out here unless they have something to bury or something to forget. You stretch your legs, suddenly aware of every joint, the kind of ache that reminds you you're alive. For now, from this distance, you can see the mountain again. Vesuvius, still, massive, regal, wearing its usual disguise, cloud-wrapped peak and holy silence. It doesn't breathe. It broods. You watch it for a while, not in fear, just curiosity. It's always been there, always will be. You've been told. People build their lives under giants all the time. What else are they supposed to do? There's a slight tremor in the ground, or maybe your foot just slipped. Hard to say. You rise slowly, brushing the dust from your tunic for the 100th time. You start heading back toward the city, toward its warmth, its lights, its layered noise. As you walk, you pass another bit of graffiti, barely legible. We were happy here. Past tense. You try not to read into it, but it clings anyway, like ash before it learns to fall. Back inside the city's boundary, twilight has settled like an old blanket, frayed at the edges but still warm. The chatter softened. Doors creak closed. Shutters drawn, not in fear, but in routine. You walk beneath the amber flicker of oil lamps that don't quite defeat the night. Shadows bloom behind them like ink in water. You pass by the thermopolium again. It's Kita now. Just a few patrons slumped over bowls, sipping diluted wine and whatever's left of the stew. The air is thick with fennel and fatigue. A server clears a table with the resigned grace of someone who knows tomorrow will look the same. She catches your eye. You nod. She nods back. You share the kind of understanding that doesn't require words, just bone-deep tiredness. Farther along, the bathhouse stands with its doors ajar. Lanterns sway in the corridor, beckoning like sirens with steam. The noise inside is muted now, just a few last bathers murmuring, the occasional splash, the low thud of someone too tired to argue with gravity. You beak in, tempted by warmth, but the night's pull is stronger. You leave the heat behind and keep walking. At an intersection near the forum, you pass a man scribbling by torchlight. He's carving something into the wall with a bit of chalk. You can't quite make it out, but it looks like poetry, or prophecy, or both. He glances at you and raises a finger to his lips, then vanishes into the dark like a rumour. The writing remains. You trace your fingers over it. Just once. The chalk smudges slightly. You stop by a vendor packing away his wares. Clay pots, tiny statues, bits of coral and amber. One figure catches your eye, a small, laughing dog. You ask, how much? He shrugs. For you, nothing. You take it, maybe as a token, maybe as a joke, maybe because you don't know what else to do with your hands. You feel something in the air cooler now, but sharper, like the silence has started to listen in. You reach the insula where your sleeping mat waits. Same walls, same roof, same whispers in the beams. You climb the stairs slowly, feet heavier than you remember. At the top, a neighbour stands in the hallway staring out the window. Not at anything, just out. You pause beside him. He doesn't look at you, just says, "Feels strange tonight." You nod, though you're not sure why. Behind you, the city hums in low tones, the kind of sound that might be mistaken for peace. If you didn't know better, you step inside and close the door. The room is dim, lit only by a stub of candle, and whatever memory the walls can hold, you sit on your straw mat, which, after today, feels almost like comfort. The fibers poke through your tunic with gentle insistence. A spider curls in one corner of the ceiling, conducting whatever web-based business spiders conduct this late in the day. You watch it. It ignores you. A fair arrangement. From the street below, a pair of voices argue not violently, just insistently, like a married couple discussing a dream that meant two different things. Their words blur into muffled syllables. You imagine the gestures that go with them, waving hands, tilted heads, the occasional theatrical sigh. Then, finally, silence. Not resolution, just exhaustion. You pull the blanket over your legs. It smells like old wool and warm dust. Somewhere beneath you, a flea makes its presence known. You scratch once, without much enthusiasm. You've learned by now, fighting nature in Pompeii is a losing game. You just live alongside it, fleas, mosquitoes, creaking beams, and all on the wall near your head. Someone once painted a faded red line. No one remembers why. Maybe it marked a shelf, maybe it meant something spiritual, or maybe someone just liked the color. You stare at it, tracing it with your eyes until your vision blurs into sleepiness. You reach for the little clay dog figurine from earlier. Set it beside your mat like a charm. It's silly, maybe, but it watches the door now. Just in case. The building groans, not ominously, just like a tired thing settling into its own bones. You hear someone cough 2 doors down. A child mutters in sleep. Footsteps climb stairs. Slow and deliberate, then stop. You hold your breath for a moment. The steps move again. Higher. Fainter. Gone. You let the breath out. Long and slow. There's a strange pressure in your ears. Could be the change in air. Could be the silence. You rub your temples and lie back. The ceiling above you is cracked in a pattern that looks like a river, or a tree root, or something trying to grow. You imagine following it, out of the city, up the slopes, into the stars. From your window slit, you can just barely see the sky. A few stars blink like nervous eyes. No moon tonight, just that mountain, quiet as ever, pretending to sleep, and beneath it, so do you. Sleep doesn't come easily in Pompeii. Not because it's loud, though, it often is, but because the city never truly stops breathing. Even now, in the thick silence of night, it exhales in groans and murmurs. The creak of a beam, the scuff of a rat, the soft murmur of a neighbor talking to themselves or their gods. You lie still, listening not out of fear, but out of habit. It's what people here do. Eavesdrop on the world as it turns without them. You shift on the straw mat, which crackles with disapproval. One lump under your spine, one near your hip, familiar discomforts that have long since passed the point of complaint. There's a certain security in repetition. Even when it itches through the tiny slit of a window, the outside world is just a slice of dark. You hear footsteps again, someone stumbling down the alley. Either drunk or lost. They stop under your window. You hold your breath. A sigh. Then the unmistakable sound of someone urinating against stone. Of course, the alley doubles as a toilet after dark. Roman city planning at its finest. The scent wafts up a moment later, mingling with the smoke from someone's dying fire and the sour tang of spilled garum somewhere nearby. You pull the blanket higher. It helps with nothing. But rituals are not for effectiveness. They are for comfort. You close your eyes. Inside your mind, the day repeats in fragments. A mosaic of memory. Bread crusts and bronze coins. Murmured prayers. Mismatched sandals. That dog-shaped figurine. That boy playing with a pine cone in the amphitheater. That sudden cool breeze. That one sentence etched into the wall, "We were happy here." A creak from the hallway. Just the building settling. Surely. Maybe the wind. Maybe the past turning over in its grave. You remember what the old woman said near the temple. That the gods don't sleep, only pretend to. Watching everything. Quietly amused. You wonder if Vesuvius is a god too. It would make sense. It watches. It waits. And it's never quite finished. You turn on your side. The straw mat squeals like a stepped-on rat. You wait again for silence to wrap around you. And it does. Mostly, a dog howls in the distance. Long and low and mournful. Not the bark of warning. The kind that sounds like it remembers something it was never told. You let your breathing slow. One more night in Pompeii. The last thing you hear before sleep catches you is your neighbor whispering a prayer in Latin. You don't know the words, but the fear in them is fluent. You wake before dawn, though you're not sure what woke you. The city isn't fully awake yet, just stretching. A pot clinks against a wall somewhere. A rooster tries and fails to sound majestic. Someone coughs hard enough to rattle a window. You blink toward the ceiling. The cracked lines above you now painted with the first hints of light, not gold. Not pink. Just the color of things slowly becoming visible. Your back protests as you sit up. The straw has pressed itself into your skin again, leaving a pattern you'll forget in an hour. Your breath fogs faintly in the air. It's cooler than yesterday. A blessing. Maybe. Or a warning. Downstairs. Someone's already grinding grain. A sound so ordinary it barely registers anymore. Rhythmic. Like a heartbeat made of stone and effort. You hear water sloshing into a basin. A whispered complaint about something unseen. Then a sudden shout, followed by silence. Probably someone stubbed a toe on the same damn stone they always forget is there. You step outside into the hallway, rubbing your eyes. The torch by the stairs has burned out, leaving a black smear on the wall. You shuffle downward, passing the same neighbor who always nods like he knows your whole life story. Maybe he does. Pompeii is a small place when you subtract the noise. In the alley, the scent of ash and damp plaster clings to everything. Someone's baking already. You can smell the bread in the wind. Rich and yeasty with a hint of smoke. It's oddly comforting. The way Pompeii always starts with food before reason. You pass a shrine tucked into the wall at the corner. The little statue of a household god is missing one hand and most of his face, but someone's left a flower anyway, wilted. Sure, but deliberate. The incense has burned down to a curled black twist. You pause just long enough to pretend reverence. The god doesn't blink. As expected, your feet take you toward the market again. Though slowly, the stones are slick from some early morning bucket spill. You sidestep a puddle that smells like wine and something less noble. A cat watches you from a doorway, eyes narrowed, tail twitching with judgment. It's unclear whether it lives there or just owns the whole block. A Kartkrieg's bust, pulled by a donkey that looks older than the forum itself. Its driver mutters something about taxes or teeth. Hard to tell. The city is waking now fully. You can feel it in your bones. The way Pompeii shakes off sleep like dust. Someone slams a door. Laughter erupts. Unprovoked. A child screams at no one. It's another day, which means you survived the last one. For now, the sun is rising with more confidence now, stretching golden fingers across rooftops and through alleyways, as if trying to touch everything before anyone else can ruin it. You squint up at it, briefly dazzled, before returning your gaze to the ground where most Pompeian business happens anyway. High hopes live up there in the sky, but reality, that stays firmly in the mud. You return to the market, drawn less by necessity than by the sheer spectacle of it. There's something oddly magnetic about watching people shout at each other over olives. Already, a fishmonger is aggressively arranging yesterday's catch on a slab of wet wood, swatting flies with a rag that might as well be made of holes. The fish look alert. You hope that's just the eyes. A few kids run past, yelling about who saw the biggest rat. You don't ask for details. A woman selling garlands gestures to you with a wilted fistful of marigolds. You shake your head. She shrugs, muttering something about cheap men and cheaper gods. You think she's complimenting you, but you move along just in case. Today, the market seems louder than usual, or maybe you're just quieter. Someone knocks over a crate of fig. They splatter dramatically, bleeding sweet pulp onto the stone. A vendor cries out as if she's lost a child, dropping to her knees and cradling the fruit with maternal grief. You offer to help. She waves you off. They died with honor, she says. Straight-faced, a man nearby is hawking a new kind of sausage. He insists it's made from real meat this time. His expression is too hopeful to trust. You give him a nod of solidarity and keep walking. The gossip is heavy in the air. It always is. But today it clings tighter, like smoke that won't lift. You overhear a conversation between two older men, arguing about omens. One claims the birds flew east too early. The other says his wife had a dream about blood raining from the sky. They both agree it probably just means higher grain prices. You pass a graffiti-covered wall, the usual mix of vulgarity and poetic despair. One catches your eye: tomorrow is a lie. Someone has scratched a line beneath it, and today keeps laughing. You're not sure what that means, but it stays with you. The sun is fully up now, baking the streets in gold and grime. The marble glows. The flies double. The city starts moving faster, as if forgetting how tired it was. Pompeii always does. This acts like nothing's wrong, right up until everything is. You wipe your brow, feel a breeze rise from the west, and smell something unexpected. Sulfur, just a hint. You shake it off. Probably the drains. You head toward the Forum again, partly because that's what people do, and partly because it's the only place in Pompeii where everyone pretends to be important at the same time. The square is already humming, merchants shouting, children darting underfoot, and a flock of pigeons doing their best to sabotage everyone's hair. You stand at the edge for a moment, watching the play unfold. There's a man in a toga trying very hard to look like he belongs there. He's gesturing wildly about taxes or betrayal, or both, probably rehearsing for court. Nearby, a teenage boy is being scolded by a tutor who looks like he's 3 eye rolls away from quitting Roman civilization altogether. The boy smirks. He'll grow up to be the man in the toga. No doubt. At the far end of the Forum, someone is selling wax tablets, used ones. Of course, the wax has been scraped clean, but not too clean. So, if you squint, you can still read someone else's thoughts underneath. One reads, "She smiled today." Another, "It moved again." You decide not to ask. You walk past the Temple of Jupiter, towering over the square like a stone parent who gave up on discipline centuries ago. The columns are chipped, the steps worn smooth. Someone's left a chicken feather at the base of the altar, possibly as an offering. Possibly just a chicken incident. The marble beneath your sandals feels warm already. You stop and sit on a low wall to watch a man try to sell bad statues of good gods. His version of Mercury has 3 toes and no nose, but he insists it's intentional. Art is interpretation. He says, you believe him, because the alternative is worse. A small group gathers around a man with a scroll, reading news aloud or something like it. Most of it is nonsense. Pirates spotted in the bay. Earthquake tremors dismissed as wine dreams. A donkey that allegedly cursed in Latin. You listen anyway. It's good to hear someone pretend to know things. The breeze returns, stronger this time, carrying the scent of baking bread and something else. Not rotten, exactly, but wrong, like burnt coins or wet stone. No one mentions it. Maybe they've all decided to pretend it's festive. You glance toward the mountain again. It looms as always too close, too far, too still. A flock of birds flies away from it, silent and sharp. The man with the scroll reads a joke about Nero. No one laughs. You rise, brush the dust from your tunic again, and begin walking. Somewhere, a dog barks 3 times, and then stops. You wander away from the Forum, toward the northeast edge of the city where fewer people live, and fewer bother, pretending not to stare at the sky. The roads here are quieter, narrower, more crooked. The kind of streets that feel like they were drawn by someone guessing. A boy runs past with a stick, pretending it's a sword. His mother calls after him without much hope. You pass a bakery, the kind with a built-in mill. 2 donkeys are still turning the great round stones, circling like they've forgotten what the outside looks like. A worker stands nearby, half asleep, nudging them along with a lazy stick. The flour dust coats everything's skin, hair, teeth, until the people look like ghosts in training. One of them waves. You wave back, not out of politeness, Out of solidarity, there's a public fountain at the corner, water trickling slowly from a lion's mouth that has seen better centuries. You stop for a sip. The water tastes like stone and metal, and something ancient. Still, it's cool. And that's enough. A woman waits behind you with a clay jug. You nod and step aside. She doesn't thank you. That's how you know you did the right thing. Farther on, you find yourself near the city walls, thick and worn, patched and repatched. Like Pompeii's attempt at a shrug, there's graffiti here too. Older, faded, names scratched in with crude tools. Some of them are probably still alive, some probably aren't. You see one that simply says, "Lucia was here, then gone." Underneath, someone has added, "Aren't we all?" The breeze hits again, sharp now, and dry. You taste dust in it, not market dust. Not the soft grit of bread and sandals and spilt figs. This is heavier, meaner. You look around, no one else seems to notice. Or maybe they've decided not to. A man walks by, muttering prayers under his breath. He's holding a small statue of Vulcan, the god of fire. It's missing its head. You keep walking. A guard stands near one of the gates, arms crossed, eyes half-lidded. He's clearly bored, probably thinking about lunch, or death, or both. You ask him if anything strange has happened today. He shrugs. Every day's strange. This one just hasn't finished yet. You thank him. He doesn't hear you. The wind picks up again, strong enough to lift the hem of your tunic and slap it against your knees like an impatient child. You glance toward Vesuvius, which now wears a crown of white nut-kite cloud, not-kite smoke, just waiting. You tell yourself it's nothing, just weather, just coincidence, just another day. You turn back toward the heart of the city, retracing your steps with that same reluctant rhythm. Pompeii teaches all its residents never in a rush, never entirely at ease. The streets have filled again, but not with noise. The conversations are shorter now. The smiles don't quite reach the eyes. There's a subtle shift in the way people glance at the sky, like they're checking if the sun still remembers its lines. You pass the Temple of Apollo, standing there with the kind of grandeur that dares pigeons to defile it, and they do. Of course, a priest sweeps the steps, humming something tuneless. He catches your gaze and offers a blessing, or possibly just a sneeze in disguise. Hard to tell. Really? Either way, you nod and move on. Near the temple's side wall, you spot an artist painting a fresco. Not a commissioned piece, just an empty wall and too much time. His brush is crude, but his lines are bold. The image, a house with smoke curling from the chimney, and in the smoke, a face. You don't recognize it. You ask if it's a god. He shrugs. It's something down the street. Two men argue about the origin of the mountain. One insists it was carved by giants. The other says it was placed there to keep people humble. Neither seems particularly convinced, but they argue louder anyway, as if volume equals certainty. A woman walks by and says, "It's just a mountain," until it isn't. You pause at a crossroads, noticing something strange. The birds are gone. No pigeons, no sparrows, just an uncanny stillness in the trees that line the edge of the forum. You look up again. The sky hasn't changed. Not obviously, but it's thicker. Somehow, heavier, like it's considering something. A group of children giggle nearby, tossing nuts into the air and trying to catch them in their mouths. One of them throws a nut too high, and it disappears over a wall. They all go silent, then laugh anyway. Kids don't worry about the future. That's what grown-ups are for. You pass a man sharpening a knife. His face is blank. His whetstone is steady. The rhythm of it is unnerving, like a song with no chorus. A girl nearby sells small charms, carved bones and twine knots. A few feathers. You pick one up, shaped like an eye. Protection, she says. From what you ask, she shrugs. From knowing too much. You buy it anyway. The air shifts again. Softer, but colder. You feel it in your teeth. Pompeii is still awake, but something deeper has started dreaming. The streets begin to empty, though no bell has rung, and no official has shouted a decree. It's more like the city itself has decided to hold its breath. Shopkeepers close shutters they had only half opened. The fruit seller, who usually argues over each fig, now offers you the entire basket for a single coin. No questions asked. You take it, not because you need figs, but because refusal feels like tempting something older than superstition. You wander toward the amphitheatre, not for a show, of course, but for the strange comfort of routine. The gates are open, though no guards stand watch. Inside, the vast arena yawns like a mouth waiting for applause or blood. Whichever comes first, you sit on one of the stone steps, still warm from the day, and let your eyes wander over the empty ring. Once, this place roared, sand flew, blades clashed, and the crowd became a beast of its own, hungry, theatrical, easily bored. Today, though, it's quiet. Even the wind seems to move differently here, as if tiptoeing. You close your eyes for a moment. The silence deepens. You imagine the ghosts of gladiators pacing below, still waiting for the next match. The scent of blood clings faintly to the walls, or maybe that's your imagination. You're not sure where one ends and the other begins anymore. A pair of boys sneak in behind you, their sandals slapping the stone as they climb toward the highest tier. They whisper and point toward the mountain, and you glance up too. Vesuvius looks closer, as if it's been quietly approaching while you weren't looking. The plume at its peak has grown, not black, not angry, not yet, just thick. A steady exhale from a god too old to explain himself. You hear one boy whisper, "It's breathing." The other laughs, but not entirely. You rise and leave the amphitheatre without knowing why. Your steps are slower now, as if the stone beneath you carries secrets. Each crack underfoot feels deliberater. You pass a statue of a Roman hero, arm raised in triumph, eyes blind with age. Someone has placed a wilted flower between his toes. Back on the main road, more shutters are closing. Dogs bark from rooftops. A man pulls his wife indoors without finishing his sentence. You tighten your grip on the fig basket. You still haven't eaten, but your stomach has gone quiet. You pass a graffiti-covered wall once more. New words have been etched since this morning. They read, "He's coming." You don't know who they mean. You don't ask. The light has changed again. Not darker, exactly, but stranger. The kind of light that makes colour feel like a rumour. Shadows stretch too far for the hour. Everything wears a thin veil of something you can't name. The smell in the air is sharp now, metallic, with an edge of earth that's been turned too quickly. You walk through the residential quarter again, the wealthier domus with their painted walls and mosaic floors. Normally, you'd glance through the open doors to catch a flash of frescoes or a stolen whisper of conversation. Now, those doors are closed, locked, bolted, even, and the windows once open for breeze and gossip are shuttered tight like eyes refusing to see. A single servant sweeps outside a grand villa, not for cleanliness, but for calm. The bristles scrape the stone like a ritual. She avoids your gaze. You keep walking. At the corner, you find a child's toy, A clay doll with one arm missing and its painted face smeared. It lies in the dust, perfectly still. You're not sure if the child dropped it or left it on purpose. You don't pick it up. Ahead, a small crowd gathers around a shrine. The lairs are covered in garlands. Too fresh. To the Sperity, someone has brought a chicken. And though its fate seems sealed, no one steps forward to do the job. Instead, they murmur prayers with a rising intensity. Voices overlapping like waves, not devotion, but bargaining. A man turns to you and says, "Do you feel it before you can ask what it is?" He walks away before you can answer. You cross back toward the marketplace. Now, half abandoned. A single table remains scattered herbs. A broken scale. A string of garlic swinging like a pendulum marking the end of something. A dog sits behind it, silent, staring at nothing. You stop. The ground shifts beneath you. Just once. Just enough. Like a breath inhaled too sharply. You catch yourself on a column. It doesn't fall. Neither do you. But the sound that follows, a deep, muffled groan from beneath the earth, settles in your teeth. Around you, silence pours in like water. Then, slowly, people resume moving, not fast, not with panic, but with that same careful slowness one uses when carrying something fragile or sacred. The birds are gone again, or maybe they never came back. You turn your eyes toward the mountain once more. It exhales, not loudly, but you feel it in your ribs. Someone whispers, "We should leave." Someone else replies, "We always say that." You keep walking, because that's what people do in Pompeii, until they don't. The streets are nearly empty now, as if the city itself is trying to make less noise, hoping not to disturb whatever force is watching from the mountain. You walk slower, not from fatigue, though it hums in your bones. It's more like your body understands something your mind refuses to translate. You pass the baths again. No laughter echoes from the pools. The steam has thinned. Only one oil-slicked servant stands outside, staring up at the sky, rag dangling from one hand. "I forgotten." You nod to him. He doesn't blink. Further down, you spot the old man with the cart, the one who sells cracked pottery no one wants but everyone buys anyway, out of guilt or habit. Today, he's giving it away. He offers you a chipped cup shaped like a lion's head. You take it. It fits oddly well in your palm, like it's been waiting. There's a silence behind the silence now. Not the absence of sound that's too easy. This one is textured, heavy, like thick wool soaked with water and draped over the whole city. Even your footsteps seem quieter than they should be. You walk to the edge of town, where the last homes lean against the fields, where grapevines curl like forgotten poetry. From here, Vesuvius fills the horizon, not angry, not peaceful. Just watching, a woman stands in her vineyard, hands on hips, eyes locked on the sky. Her dress flaps like a flag in the wind. Though the air isn't moving, you ask her if she's going inside. She says, "There's no point pretending." You don't ask what she means. A low vibration ripples through the ground again. You feel it more than hear it. The trees shift. A handful of birds erupt from a bush, screaming like they forgot how to land. You head back toward your insula, now understanding why so many doors were shut before noon. People aren't expecting the end. They're just tired of beginning again. The familiar creak of your stairs greets you. You climb them slowly, passing the neighbor who always nods. Today, he doesn't. Inside, the room feels smaller. The straw on your bed looks exactly as you left it. You lie down, placing the lion-headed cup on the floor beside you. You close your eyes. But the darkness isn't quiet. There's a hum beneath it, not fear, not warning, just knowing. In the distance, the mountain sighs, and so does the city. And now, as the dust settles in the quiet corners of your little room and the distant breath of the mountain fades into stillness, you begin to feel your body loosen, like old knots finally giving up the fight. The straw beneath you rustles softly, the wool blanket warm with the last of the day's sun, heavy with the scent of smoke and clay. The city around you exhales, not with panic, but with the resignation of something ancient, something that has seen too much to be startled anymore. Pompeii sleeps with one eye open. So do you. The walls hum with old stories. The floor beneath you remembers sandals and sandals and sandals again. So many feet passing, so many meals shared, arguments whispered, jokes carved into plaster. Time doesn't move in straight lines here. It folds like linen. Outside, a breeze tiptoes across the rooftops, rattling loose shutters, stirring forgotten herbs drying on twine. It doesn't ask questions. It just moves, like all things must. And somewhere below, in the cracks of the earth, something continues to turn. But not tonight. Tonight, the fires stay in their braziers. The dogs settle quietly. The gods, for once, stay silent. You let your breath match the rhythm of this ancient place. Slow, uneven, wonderfully human. Your fingers uncurl. Yuriev softens. Your thoughts begin to wander without urgency to markets, to garlands, to strange painted eyes that watched you without malice. Let them wander. Let the city fade gently behind your closed eyes. Let the murmurs of its stones carry you somewhere softer than sleep. You are here. You are safe. And for now, the world is still.